now going to focus on actual items that the museum has that has to do with things from the time of the Mishnah, the end of Vayesheni, to the beginning of the Mishnah. And these things are mentioned in the Mishnah in some form or another. Or the Gemara will expound on something from the Mishnah, and it's from that time. Let us begin with something very basic. The Gemara tells us that there were two ways of making the inyan of taking Shemen HaMishcha and doing the Shemen HaMishcha and being moishech and actually anointing a melech, a king, or a kohen gadol. So the Gemara tells us, and Rashi brings this in Chumash, that there was something called kimin ki yavanis, like a Greek key, letter key. People learn this Gemara, they have no idea what a ki yavanis means. Then, so a kohen gadol, there were moishech like a ki yavanis. People chazed these words and they have no idea what they're saying. And then the Gemara says also that there was another way of the making Shemen HaMishcha, and that was for a melech. What was a melech? Kimin nezer, like a diadem. What does this mean? Do people learn Gemara and Menachos and they have no idea what the Gemara is talking about? What I'm about to do is to show you a coin minted in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash by Hardus, King Herod the Great, that shows both ways of making the Shemen HaMishcha as discussed in the Gemara. Kimin ki yavanis is what we call in English an X. Kimin nezer was like putting it on the outline, the diadem of the person's head. Hordus killed out Malchus HaChashmonaim, the Maccabees, and their whole dynasty of kings. And he wanted to show Ki'ilu, as if he is a continuation, and he has the right of being king, and even has the right of being like a kohen gadol. So what did Hordus do? Hordus minted a coin, and we have an original coin from Hordus that depicts both ways of making Shemen HaMishcha. And you will see like an X in the middle of the coin. And you will also see a round like the side of a head. And these are the two ways that the Gemara in Menachos explains Kimin ki yavanis and Kimin nezer. The other side of this coin has a picture of a table. Now this table is very, very important because on Shar Titus in Rome, it shows a similar picture of a table. And we believe that that table was the Lechem Hapan. So you're looking at a coin minted 2,100 years ago that has the picture of both ways of making Shemen HaMishcha, Kimin ki yavanis and Kimin nezer, as the Gemara in Menachos describes. So here again you see an item that is mentioned in the Mishnah and in the Gemara. It's mentioned by the Greek name Kimin ki yavanis, and you can see it here in our museum exactly what the coin is talking about. Let me show you another example. The Gemara tells us that a soita was given to drink the mayim hama'arim from a feli shel cheres. The word feli is spelled pei yud yud lamed yud. Feli was a Greek word. The Gemara is using a Greek name. This keli is called in Greek a fiala. It was a drinking bowl. They had a bump in the middle. You took two fingers, put it here, and you would use it to drink. And this is a feli shel cheres. And the Gemara says a saita was given to drink the mayim hama'arim from a feli shel cheres. Now, why did they use a feli shel cheres? Cheres was considered a klimos, a keli that was disgusting. Who used cheres? A poor person. So it says in the Medrash that when she was over an avera, she used gold and silver kelim, and now she had to use a cheres. A king or a minister would use A melech or a malka would use a gold or silver feli, or gold or silver fiali. Person who was a poor person, if he wanted to use, he would use one of cheres. Here you can see it. In fact, Rashi in Chumash tells us that the Sar HaMashkin gave to drink pare. People make this mistake. They think he gave him to drink in a kais. Rashi says feli. Pei, Yud, Yud, Lamed, Yud. Rashi in Chumash uses the Greek name. So I'm showing you a lot of names and words that the Mishnah and the Gemara uses. Like today, if you spoke Yiddish, you would say corner, refrigerator, air conditioner. The Mishnah and the Gemara were using names that was common at that specific time. I'm going to show you another example that is also very significant in our understanding of Mishnahs and Gemaras, and you need to see the mitzias of what it's talking about. Not only did we have, by the way, a feli shel cheres, we even have something, a feli of glass. It has the same bump that you would put in the middle, and this is covered of glass. Now, glass was considered very chashuv, very, very expensive. Eov compares glass to gold. Lo yarichenu zahavu schuches. He puts glass and gold in the same sentence. This particular keli is very valuable. Why? Because glass, when it sits over time, sometimes develops what's called an iridescent, this film, white-looking film over it. And just like if you have a lulav with moch, it's considered a chashuv, a lulav with all the brown things hanging off it. In antiquities, if you have a glass vessel with this kind of iridescent growing on it, is considered the most chashuv type of glass of the ancient world. And this is a keli of feli shel zechuches. And this was a very expensive keli in the ancient world. Another very valuable glass item was this little pach, this little vessel for oil, and for very expensive oil. And this pach is important because it's similar to the picture of the pach shemen on the coins of Shimon bar Kochba. And we have already spoken about the other pach that we have in the museum made of cheres, but this was a glass miniature kind of pach keli made out of glass for that time. Now, each country made kelim in different styles, and when previously we have discussed different styles of kelim from the different periods which had a specific style. The Yevonim, the Greeks, had their own style kelim. Just like I showed the feli and we showed the different things, they would actually take pottery and paint very intricate pictures on the pottery. And here are broken fragments of Greek vases, of Greek pottery items, that have very beautiful designs. And afterwards they would put it in a kivshin shel eish, and they would fire it. And by putting it in a kivshin shel eish and firing it, it would stay even over a long period of time. Here you can see some of the details in this little piece of pottery of lines and very detailed drawn pictures that have survived 2,000 years. When it came to the Beis Hamikdash, we have spoken previously about kelim for oil. But what did the kelim, for example, to keep nisuch hayayin, what did kelim for wine look like? So they had, in the ancient world, a kad, a chavis. These are kelim mentioned in the Mishnah, the Gemara, and later in our Masechtas Kelim room, we will show what an actual kad looks like, what an actual chavis looked like. But the Beis Hamikdash also had a keli for wine that we know very specifically. Shimon bar Kochba minted a coin, and here is a picture of a very, very valuable coin from Shimon bar Kochba. This coin shows a picture of a keli that the Greeks called a hydra. H-Y-D-R-A, hydra. It was a keli for wine. And we know its name in Greek, and we also know that Bar Kochba minted this on his coin, and we know that this was a keli used for wine. And this is also very significant because the Yidden minted different coins, but they also made oil lamps. And in a 2,000-year-old oil lamp that we have here in the museum, we have an oil lamp that has a picture of the same type of keli right here at the center. And this is an actual oil lamp depicting the keli for wine that matches the one on the coin of Shimon Bar Kochva, and it shows the kind of keli for wine that would have been used in the Beis Hamikdash. As we know, with every single carbon that you brought in the Beis Hamikdash, you had to donate it a certain amount of wine. For example, we learn about Revius Hahin La Keves Ha'echa. We say it in davening every single day. Now, what I'm about to show you is something which I consider truly amazing. The word hin that the Torah uses is a word that's found in Egyptian hieroglyphics. And it was a measurement in Egyptian hieroglyphics. I am now going to show you an Egyptian hieroglyphics dictionary. And in this hieroglyphics dictionary, there's a section of the dictionary that shows different words found in Hebrew, found in ancient hieroglyphics. And what word do you find in hieroglyphics? The word hin. The word hin. And this is very significant because we know today what the Egyptians called a hin. It was a certain measurement vessel. And just yesterday, I bought a collection of antiques. And one of the collection items that I bought is something I've been looking for years. It's an actual keli that the Egyptians called a hin. So the whole machlokes between the Chazon Ish and Reb Chaim Noh about the shiurim of the different, what an ephah is and what a hin is and what the sizes is, I would like to show you in an Egyptian hieroglyphics dictionary that the same word that we have ephah is right here. So here you've just seen the measurement of a hin, revius hahin, ephah, and part of the collection I bought was a keli. And one of the main reasons I bought this collection was just to be able to get this keli, which is a keli that the Mitzrayim called the hin. So just like when the Gemara says feli, and it's in Greek fiali, and just like when the Gemara will use a term and it means something in Greek, kimin ki yavanis, we now know what the Mitzrayim called the shear of a hin and what it measures. Now, because I have tremendous respect both for the Chazon Ish and both for Reb Chaim Noh, and I don't want to get myself in the middle of this machlokes, I am not going to disclose which of the two shiurim is actually fits in the Egyptian measure. But for those people who are interested in this subject, who would like to come to the museum and study these items, and then look up in the Svarim to see what they both wrote about this, you can figure out and come to your own conclusion about which of the two shittas fits in with these 2,500-year-old kalim that the Mitzrayim called a ephah and the Mitzrayim called a hin, and you could decide that for yourself. Just like in Bavel, there's the shear of a base kur, mentioned in the Gemara. The shear of a kur was a Babylonian measure. It was a measure of Bavel. We have in the museum a shtar, a contract that says 7 kur of barley, the shear from the base kur. Ushloisha manim yiseirim. The shear of a mana was a shear of Bavel. And this was very important. The Babylonians, the people of Bavel, had a shear called the mina, M-I-N-A, the shear of a mana. We have a contract in the museum that actually mentions 3 mina, 3 mana of a certain plant that one person is selling to the other. So the fact that we know pennies, nickels, dimes, dollars, pounds, and ounces are the same today as we use it in English as you would use it when you would cheshboning today. In fact, the word ounce comes from the Roman Latin word uncia. Uncia, spelled U-N-C-I-A. And that's the Roman Latin word is uncia, and in English today, the word is ounce. So the idea of ephah, hin, as I just showed you, the same word was in mitzvahs. And we know the measurement in mitzvahs of these things, and we know the exact meaning of it. And therefore, these are now becoming very, very important because they show us the sizes and the shiurim that we learn about. Let's use now another example. For example, we know that there was a keli mentioned in Masechtas Para Perik Beis called the kolal, kuf lamed lamed. So the Mishnah says, what was the kolal? Kolal was used to store the ashes of the paradum. And that's what they would store the ashes of the paradum. And the Mishnah in Para explains how they would take out the ashes in a way that they shouldn't make it tameh. There's a whole discussion about that. When the shekel hakodesh and the machzis hashekel were made, what's very, very fascinating is that on the machzis hashekel there is a picture of a keli called the kolal. And right now I'm going to show you a machzis hashekel, mizman bayisheni, with a picture of a kolal on it. Here is an actual machzis hashekel. At the center of the coin is a picture of this keli called the kolal. And this was called in English a chalice. And it was a very common keli at that time, like you would say a large drinking cup of today. This right over here is an actual chalice. This is not from the Beis Hamikdash, but its shape and its design matches the one on the coin. And they had variations of this keli. Some they would paint with beautiful designs and then put it in a kifshin shel eish and then fire it. This is a very beautiful one. This one right over here is a little narrower, and you could see some of the red paint that was painted onto it before it was put in a kifshin shel eish. And this was fired, and the color stayed because in being in the kifshin shel eish, it protected and stayed in its thing. So here's an example of a regular household utensil that had the same shape as a kolal, and sometimes these are also referred to in Tanach as a kubas. Kuf vav beis ayin saf. And this becomes very, very important. In the haftarahs that we read, in this haftarahs about the punishment that Hashem will bring in the Gimel Paranias, we say the Eibush is going to fill up a kuba'as kois hatarela. This is also referred to in Tanach as a kuba'as. When they used to have very, very big parties, some people would also use it as drinking. The Eibush says, and the Navi warns Bnei Yisrael, that if Bnei Yisrael will not stop being Oyved Avodah Zarah, Hashem will fill up a kuba'as kois hatarela. And here you can see it. So this was a commonly used item in that time, which is similar in nature to the kolal, which is depicted on the machzis hashekel and the shekel hakodesh from the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, and the Mishnah in Para Perik Beis mentions this type of item. Another very interesting thing that people used to do, just like today, if you buy something, a sefer, a book, you write your name on the sefer. They used to make a chavis or a kad of wine. They would have kalim with people's names on it. This right here is a Greek jar handle. And this has an inscription in Yevonis, in Greek on it. The name of this person was Asanus. That was his name. And here is the name as it's written in its Greek letters. And this was considered a siman on a keli. The person had his name on a keli. So sometimes the Gemara will discuss and talk about if there's a siman, then you have to be machris. If it's no siman, sometimes they would make a mark, And sometimes they would actually put their name on a specific keli. Another very, very interesting thing that we also have is, just like I showed you an oil lamp that had a picture of the keli for wine that matches the coin that Shimon bar Kochva minted, that shows a keli of wine. There is another coin that was minted by Shimon bar Kochva that has a picture on one side of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, and on the other side has a lulav and an esrog. And it says in Ksav Ivri, in the old Hebrew script, Shimon Nasi Yisrael. This is one of the best ones in the world, showing the coin on both sides. Now what's very fascinating, if you look closely at the keshetel on this lulav, you're going to see that there's an esrog, there's a lulav, 2 aravis, and a lot of hadassim. And you can see the details of the tremendous amount of hadassim. It shows us how they were making their keshetel on their lulav. And it also shows us something else that's important. Chabad uses 53 hadassim, because in the Zohar it says gan, and the tikkun of chet eitz hadas is the inyan of gan, of the inyan of 53 hadassim. There's a machloikis if the eitz hadas was an esrog or an apple. So one of the tikkun that the Zohar writes is to use the dalet minimum is a tikkun on the eitz hadas. So here you see that this minhag of taking 53 hadassim, or a lot of hadassim, can even be seen on the coin of Shimon bar Kochva. Furthermore, the other side that has a picture of the front of the Beis Hamikdash, which we previously discussed, we also have an oil lamp that has a picture of the columns, the front of the Beis Hamikdash, which matches the coin of Shimon bar Kochva. And this is a very, very rare Jewish oil lamp that has the same image of the front of the Beis Hamikdash that can be seen with the columns here as well. And this black is from being lit 2,000 years ago. You could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nozzle oil lamp. You could put 5 psilos in the same oil lamp. Just like it says, Shtei piyos l'shnei b'nei adam, this was an oil lamp. You could put 5 piyos, 5 edges in the same oil lamp. It has a ring so that you can hold it, or if you were walking, like you have a flashlight, this was how people would walk and carry their oil lamps. And what's unique is that it still has its original handle intact. Oil lamps were interesting because every melech, every kingdom made its own style oil lamp. And in fact, Josephus writes about this. The Hashmonaim, the Maccabees, had a very unique style oil lamp. They made a hamantash type of oil lamp. Their oil lamp looked like a hamantash. That's what Josephus writes. And right here is a 2,000-year-old Hashmonaim Maccabean oil lamp. And even scientists today still refer to this style oil lamp as the Maccabean, the Hashmonaim oil lamp. The oil would go here, the psila, the wick, would go here. And this is called a Maccabean style oil lamp. Hardus, King Herod the Great, made his own style oil lamp. And this is called a Herodian oil lamp, an oil lamp from the style of Hardus. And every king wanted to make a certain style, so that even years later they would be remembered for their style. Just like today we have Italian style furniture, colonial American style. Each one has its own style. these kingdoms would make their own style as well. And going back to that, the Yevonim, the Greeks, made also a certain painted style. And this was considered a footed bowl, like a little serving plate, with a beautiful Greek design, painted. And these circular type of things was made by the Yevonim, the Greeks. Now the Mishnah discusses this kind of keli. This keli has a stand. What happens if you turn it over? You can put something in here as well. Is it considered a base kibble on the bottom piece also? And sometimes you have the toich of the keli, the gav of the keli, all the different chalakim that I discussed in the Mishnah. You can see it here as well, what the Mishnah is talking about. So these items represent very specific styles common in the time of the end of Vayesheni and the Mishnah. And the Gemara mentions many of these things that you can see here in our museum. One of the things that Chazal mentioned was called a gluskema. What was a gluskema? So the Gemara says that a merchant, a soicher, would, just like you have a trunk today, would take his gluskema from town to town, and he would fill it up. If it was a moicher of spices, he would fill up his spices. He would come to the middle of the marketplace. He would open up his gluskema, and he would sell his merchandise. These were called gluskemos. There were two types of gluskemos. One was a gluskema that was for burial purposes, that they used to bury people. This is not that kind of gluskema. Those were very small, and they would make them the size of the bone, of the largest bone of the person's body, and they were made very, very small. Then there were the gluskemos that the Gemara refers to, that were made for sachrim, for a person who was selling. And these were these very large, like you have a trunk. Today, this was your box. This particular one is fascinating. Beautifully carved. And right over here, at the top corner, it says in Greek letters, in Yevonis, we were just talking about Greek, it says, Yosifun, Josephus, merchant of spices. Soicher of spices. This is not Yosifun, who wrote the history of the Yidden. This is a person who wrote and made a siman on his keli. Yosifun, merchant of spices. So exactly what Chazal tell us, that the people used to go from one marketplace to the other marketplace and sell their merchandise and open up their gluskema and sell directly out of it. And they could, this is a 2,100-year-old gluskema with the Greek inscription. And this is a fascinating thing, because you see the detail of the designs that were carved in here, how it was beautifully done, and with the name of the person on this particular gluskema. This right here is another Greek keli, painted beautifully, with some of the original design that still could be seen here. And this again was a style that the Yevonim, the Greeks, would use. And that was a very specific style known and used by the Yevonim, the Greeks, at that specific time. One of the things we learn about in Chumash, V'sadita oisei basid, and you're going to put plaster. And plaster, just as we plaster walls today, were very commonly done in the ancient world. This was found in Masada. It's a piece of wall, piece of plaster. The paint and the design is already gone, but this is a 2,000-year-old piece of sid, of plaster. And this is from one of the walls of the palace of Masada. Another very, very important thing is, the Gemara always talks about a merchatz, a bathhouse. Now, just like the bathrooms in your house have tiles, tiles in bathtubs, in base merchatzes, in bathhouses, became very, very common. Here is a piece of an actual bathhouse with the rows of tiles. And this is very, very important. This was coming from Masada as well. We also have from the city of Caesarea, the city where Rabbi Akiva was killed. These are actual tiles from a bathhouse that was found in Caesarea. A person by the name of David Hirsch, who's a Baal Tshuva today, in the 1970s was in Caesarea, and he found these bath tiles from a bathhouse, and he donated it here. He's from Los Angeles, California, and he donated it to the museum. And we also have a few loose tiles of different colors, and there are also bath tiles. So the same concept of you have a bathtub with tiles in your bathroom, Ein Kol Chadash Tachas HaShemesh. They had tiles and they had bathhouses. Masada Titus Basid, they had plaster, the same things they had in the ancient world as well. Just as you have today big columns, amudim, and beautiful capitals, this is carved out of stone. And right here is an actual beautiful piece of stone. This right here is a beautiful piece of column. On the top of the column was the capital, and you could see the beautiful designs that are carved out of a single piece of limestone. A single piece of limestone. This whole beautiful design. And it weighs quite a bit. This is a small column. One of the most amazing things you will see here in the museum is something that's very, very touching. When Titus came to destroy the second Beis Hamikdash, Yosefat tells us that he came with the 10th legion of the Roman army, the Tzenta Legion from the Römische Armee. In America, when we talk about the American army, we talk about the American legions. In fact, I have a branch of our museum in the Catskills in Fallsburg, New York. And the building which we bought for the museum used to be called the American Legion building. In Chazal, they're called legiones. On Tisha B'Av, in Nachem, we talk about the legiones, the Roman soldiers, the Roman legions. And Yosefan tells us that which group of soldiers came to destroy the Beis Hamikdash? The Tzenta Legion, the 10th legion of the Roman army. 9 years ago, they were building a parking lot in Yerushalayim, and they found the military headquarters of Titus. And one of the things they found are 1,200 of these bricks, that on every single brick there is an inscription. It says on it, L-E-G, Legion, X, 10, F-R, Frentes Roma, from the Roman army. Like you would write today, property of the United States Army, 102nd Airborne Division. This says L-E-G, Legion, X, 10, Frentes Roma. You're looking at a piece of brick that was once part of the military headquarters of Titus, exactly as it's described in Yosefun, that they were the group of soldiers that destroyed the second Beis Hamikdash. Not only do we have that, but the most fascinating item that you will see in this particular tape today, in this particular shiur, has to do with the Beis Hamikdash. We know that everything of the Beis Hamikdash was considered kodesh. But one of the things we also know, as the Gemara in B'choros Daf Nun tells us, that when the Eibishter went to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, he was mesalik the kedusha away from the Beis Hamikdash. And just as we know that a yid is allowed to take money, the Gemara has a question. A lot of gold and silver of the Beis Hamikdash was taken away by the Romans. And not only was it taken away, we're not talking about kalim, we're talking about money from the Lishka, the Gemara says. So the Gemara says that Hadrayana and Trajana Malka, Hadrian and Trajan, melted down money, silver of the Beis Mikdash, and they made coins out of it. And in a special tape which we're about to make on the ancient currency and coins of the ancient world, you will see some of these coins that were minted down from the silver and gold of the Beis Mikdash. And there's no din kedusha. So the Gemara says, Omar, Rabbi Chanina says, they wanted Bikshu Lignois Kol Kesev V'Zav Sheba'olam. They wanted to put away all the gold and silver of the world. Ad Shematzu, until they found the pasuk in Yecheskel, that the Eibishter was Masalik the Kedusha, and then the Goyim came. So therefore, even for a pidyon aben, the Gemara says, you're allowed to use gold and silver coins that Hadrayanis and Trajana Malka minted, because there's no din Kedusha. And even in that time, for a pidyon aben, you were allowed to use it. And there's no isser of gold and silver. The Gemara concludes, and the Rambam paskins this halacha, that something that was broken from the Beis Mikdash has no din Kedusha, because the Kedusha was nostalgic. We're not talking about a whole keli, we're talking about a broken piece of something. Now if you go to the Kaisel today, you will see that the stones all have a border around it. There's the middle of the stone, and then there's like a design all around the stone that Hardus, King Herod the Great, built. And the Gemara tells us why. Hardus originally wanted to put gold all around the center. Should be rock, and the sides he should be all with gold. He never completed that. So therefore, a broken piece doesn't have a kedusha, and this is what all the rabbunim who are involved with our museum paskin. And that's Rabbi Yisrael Belsky, Rabbi David Cohen, Rabbi Cheskel Roth, Rabbi Yomolando, all have gone through this specific inyan. What I'm about to show you is just like you have the koisel. The koisel is not the wall of the Beis Mikdash. Man shemachatus, they make a mistake, they think it's the wall of the Beis Mikdash. It was the wall around Harabais. And each stone had this design that Hardus made on the border around the stone. This comes and was found in Yerushalayim. It's a broken piece. Nicht of the koisel hamaruvi, not of the western wall, but of the southern wall. And you can see the same style stone. And you can see the design, the piece of where this border would come from. And this is the piece that the Gemara says they wanted to put gold all around, and you can see the border. What's very interesting about limestone is the Beis Mikdash was made out of these avonim, and these what was a limestone. It was a very beautiful stone, and it was easy to carve. And also, limestone was a very combustible stone. It would burn very easily. Yosifan tells us that when Titus came to destroy the Beis Mikdash, he took avukoi shel esh, torches of fire, and they stuck the fire between the stones. The stones got very hot, and they were literally exploding, jumping off the walls, because limestone is a combustible stone. What's very unique about this stone is I'm going to show you the back of the stone. You can see the burn marks in the stone and the bubbling that happens. When something starts burning and bubbling, it gets burn marks and it bubbles from the heat. And all along here you can see the bubbling and the burn marks in the stone. And you're looking at a stone that burnt on Tisha B'Av in Yerushalayim. All along here you can see the actual burn marks in the stone. So you're looking at a stone that burnt on Tisha B'Av in Yerushalayim. And this is one of the most emotional pieces that we have here in the museum. And there's no din kedusha for it. And it is amazing to see an actual stone that's not from the Beis Hamikdash itself. It's on the wall around Har HaBayis, the southern wall. And there's no din kedusha, as the Gemara B'charis Daf Nun Amud Aleph clearly explains. When Ayatollah Khomeini Yamach Shemai came to power in Iran, 3 Yidden were ready to die on Mesiras Nefesh to save this bowl. What is this bowl, and what is so important about it? 200 years ago, a Zilberschmidt, a silversmith, living in Iran, went by and saw the ancient palace of Koresh, the ancient palace of Cyrus the Great. And he saw a wall that shows how the Yidden come to Koresh, the Yidden come to Cyrus and ask permission to build by Yesheni. And not only does Koresh give them permission, he gives them mitlin, he gives them supplies to which to go and build by Yesheni. Being a silversmith, this Yid in Iran spent 6 months making the silver bowl and carving a copy on this silver bowl of the entire wall of the palace of Koresh, showing the Yidden coming to Koresh for asking permission to build by Yesheni. And not only does Koresh give them permission, Koresh gives them supplies to go build by Yesheni. The story ends at the base with the soldiers of Koresh marching with supplies to go and build by Yesheni. I'm going to show you a few details